Where once the public refused to visit a place that had paranormal activity, ghost tourism now drives a large niche market in the hospitality industry. Canada has a large history of haunting and paranormal activity throughout all of its provinces and territories. In this video, we'll look at a few of the haunted pubs, restaurants, and hotels you can visit, if you dare. Hang on to your seats because we're going across the country to check out some of Canada's most haunted pubs, restaurants, and hotels. So if you're wanting to do a little ghost tourism, all of these establishments are open and operational as of October 2022. Located at 325 Duckworth Street, St. John's, Newfoundland, the Duke of Duckworth is a well-established pub which has been around for many years. Co-owner Colin Dalton has experienced strange happenings over the years and says there are a few people who won't work at the pub because of it. The building used to be part of a large building which housed a clothing company, and the rumor is that the manager, Mr. White, or one of his sons, hung himself in the building. Dalton said the first ghostly antics happened one night when a bartender saw a face on the back wall. Since then, many get a strange feeling of being watched. Ashtrays have moved off of all tables and then were placed together on one, and the television turned on by itself. One event was even caught on security camera.
I came in, the boy said, "Did you put a cracked off pool stick or something on the floor before you left?" Because just after I left, I said, "No, I don't go around laying pieces of wood on the floor." And he said, "No, it was really weird and stuff." So I went down and I looked it on the camera. It just kind of pokes out, falls down, and then rolls around, which is the freaky part for me, where it starts rolling. Of course, you could explain it that was from vibrations or something like that, or well, it wasn't a very busy time. There wasn't much happening. It's just a time of year everybody kind of gets freaked out by that sort of stuff. So, but it's a great video to watch.
So the next time you're in St. John's, stop by the Duke and Duckworth for a pint and a poltergeist. Next, you may or may not want to stay at the beautiful and luxurious ALGONQUIN Resort, situated in one of North America's most historic towns, St. Andrews by the Sea, New Brunswick. The ALGONQUIN was originally built in 1889, with 2 wings added in 1908 and 1912. After you check in, you may be shown to your room by a bellhop who'll tell you all about the property, but he may disappear when you try to tip him. Guests are encouraged to leave a small gratuity at the desk for him so that he can collect it the next time he appears. Also, don't be alarmed when you hear the ghostly night watchman making his rounds down the back stairs with his keys clanking against the railing. If you request to stay in room 473, you may hear a bride weeping. Rumor has it she lost her fiancé at sea and died of a broken heart. Various ghosts are said to inhabit and disturb rooms 308 and 373. Objects disappear temporarily from the 4th floor, and on the 2nd floor, doorknobs turn by themselves, and the staff receive phone calls from rooms which are empty. And if that isn't enough, there is a child which is seen and heard on the 3rd floor playing in the halls. The story told is that it's the ghost of a child who chased a ball out of the 3rd floor window and perished. In the dining room, you may encounter the apparition of a senior staff member busying herself with rearranging the table settings in the evening. The ALGONQUIN's rooftop tower is off limits, and some have claimed to see an illuminated woman in white there. The ALGONQUIN Resort states, "All of our ghosts are friendly, but when guests claim that they never want to leave, we take them seriously." The older the building, the more history it seems to store in its walls, and 1740 Argyle Street in Halifax stores more than its share, with some important Canadian history at that. The Five Fishermen restaurant has been here since 1975, but let's travel back to its beginning. Halifax was expanding rapidly in the early 1800s, and it was realized that a school was badly needed. The parishioners of St. Paul's Church of England took on that responsibility and opened the doors of this new building in 1818. It was the first school in Canada to offer free education, earning the building the distinction of being a protected heritage site. When the building could no longer house its many students, it was purchased by Anna Lee and Owens to start up an art school. Now, you may not recognize the name Anna Lee and Owens, but I'm sure that you have heard of her. Before coming to Halifax, she was the governess to the children of the King of Siam. You may recall the book Anna and the King of Siam, or the movie and Broadway musical called The King and I. In the early 1900s, the building takes quite a turn when the Snow family took possession of it and opened a morgue. When you think of a morgue and of Halifax, two things should come to mind. Number one, April 15, 1912, the ship RMS Titanic sank off the coast of Newfoundland. Rescue operations took place out of Halifax, and John Snow buried numerous bodies at sea, but the wealthier victims, such as John Jacob Astor and Charles M. Hayes, were brought back to the mortuary on Argyle Street so appropriate arrangements could be made. The second incident came on December 6, 1917, with the Halifax explosion. The explosion claimed roughly 2,000 lives. The Snow's funeral home windows were blown out, but they remained open to conduct funeral services for the dead at the rate of 30 to 40 per day. With this rich history, is it any wonder that the current Five Fishermen restaurant has some otherworldly guests? Many staff members can tell you about the taps that turn themselves on and off, the voices who whisper their names, and of cold pockets of air on even the hottest of summer nights. One hostess felt a brush across her face as she was in the process of showing a couple to their table. After seating the couple, a maitre d' asked, "What happened to your face?" Upon her cheek was a red handprint. An apparition of a tall elderly man with long gray hair and a long black old-fashioned coat is often seen after hours within the restaurant when no one should be there and the doors are locked. The Chateau Frontenac in Quebec City hosts two ghosts that roam this luxury hotel. Built in 1893, the Chateau Frontenac is one of Canada's most famous hotels. It was originally built as one of the railroad hotels attracting wealthy tourists to cities along the newly built Canadian Pacific Railway. It's a UNESCO heritage site, and it is steeped in history, overlooking the St. Lawrence River, and is situated within the historic Old Quebec district. The hotel is named after 17th century governor of New France, Louis de Bode de Frontenac, who died in his home, the site on which the hotel is now built. His instructions were that upon his death, his heart would be sent in a box to his fiancée in Europe, but she was so grief-stricken that she sent the box back unopened. Since then, Louis roams this realm in search of his long-lost love. He can be seen wearing period dress and tends to linger on the second floor, where you may see him by the window, or you may also run into him in the ballroom. Don't be alarmed if you have company at night, as it is said a sad woman in a white nightgown crawls into bed with the guests. She doesn't have any particular room she haunts, so you may wake up with someone you didn't expect. If you like waterfalls, then you'll want to stay at the warm and welcoming Inn at the Falls in Bracebridge, Ontario. This Victorian manor was built in the early 1870s and is situated on a dead-end street with the back of the building overlooking parkland and the falls below. 7 years after its construction, the home was purchased by Judge William Crosby Mahaffey, in which he resided until his death around 1911. The judge died far from home in England, where he had traveled to receive medical treatment. The inn has a strict no-smoking policy, but that doesn't stop the smell of cigar smoke drifting through the lower floors, and sometimes is accompanied by the apparition of an older man wearing turn-of-the-century clothing, looking very much like the judge's portrait. It appears Mahaffey returned to his beloved home after all. Room 105, called the Spirit Room, has the greatest amount of paranormal activity. Guests of this room have reported waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a melancholy young woman walk across the room to the window. The room is also known for odd temperature changes and sometimes gets so cold you can see your breath. The inn at the Falls has other entities as well, including a mischievous child and an aged former owner. So the next time you want to go chasing waterfalls, you might want to chase some ghosts at the same time. Another railway hotel and another tale of lost love. This time we head to the Fort Garry Hotel at 222 Broadway in Winnipeg, Manitoba. The Grand Trunk Railway built this impressive chateau-style hotel, which opened December 11, 1913, during Winnipeg's boom years. It was designated a National Historic Site of Canada in 1981. Some of the hotel's famous guests over the years included Louis Armstrong, Harry Belafonte, Laurence Olivier, Liberace, Lester Pearson, King George VI, and Queen Elizabeth. The hotel is infamous for its haunted room number 202. Legend has it that a newlywed couple stayed in the hotel in the 1920s. The bride had a headache and sent her new husband out for some headache medication. Before he could return, he was killed by being hit by a horse-drawn cart. It is said that in her grief, she hung herself in the room's closet. Her ghost waits in room 202 for her beloved's return and is also seen in the hotel lounge crying in the corner. Guests have reported that at night they feel as though someone's gotten into bed with them, but when they turn around to check, there's no one there. In 2000, national headlines were made when former Ontario Liberal MP Brenda Chamberlain claimed she was awoken twice in one night by the sensation of the bed moving, as if someone was laying next to her. She decided to switch rooms, saying, "I told them I either wanted a new room or I wanted to pay half price because I was sharing it with someone." A regular hotel guest always requests a specific room because the spirit of a woman in a white ball gown visits her there. It is claimed that a lady named Macmillan was dressed in a white lace gown and stayed in that room during the opening night of the Fort Garry Hotel. Other strange occurrences include voices coming from an empty and locked dining room, and when the door was opened, the figure of a man sat at one of the tables. When photos were taken in room 202, the film of the room would not develop, yet other photos did. And a ghost of a woman in a robe has been seen walking in the hallways. It's easy to see why the Fort Garry Hotel is considered one of Canada's most haunted places. Regina's Bushwacker Brew Pub has been serving up some spirits along with their nachos and beer. And when I say spirits, I don't mean the alcoholic kind. The building, which is situated on the corner of Dewdney Avenue and Cornwall Street, originally housed a Chinese laundromat which was destroyed by a tornado on June 30th, 1912. Dozens of people were trapped in the rubble of the building, and approximately 20 lives were lost in the immediate area. Many rescue volunteers rushed to help in the aftermath, including a young British actor named William Henry Pratt. He would later find fame as a horror icon in Hollywood under his new name, Boris Karloff. In an interesting side note, Boris Karloff's great-aunt was Anna Leon Owens, whom we mentioned earlier in this video, as she's connected to Halifax's Five Fishermen restaurant building. A new warehouse was built upon the ruins and opened in 1913. It was managed by James Strathdy. In the early 1930s, James was involved in a major automobile accident and sustained serious injuries. He never fully recovered from a head injury causing depression, and he ended his life with a shotgun. Late at night, out of the corner of your eye, you may see a man wearing 1930s clothing, and he has a full beard. But when you turn to get a better look, he's gone. People who have seen the ghost assume that it's James Strathdy. The apparition of James, called Jim by the Bushwacker staff, is said to turn lights on and off, and to throw old pieces of coal at you in the boiler room. Other eerie happenings include doors opening by themselves, moving coat hangers, shaking bottles in the cold room, cold spots, and women's voices calling out names. In the basement, the assistant brewer was pushed so hard by an invisible force that he fell on his face and was left with a red mark on his back. Have you been to any of these places? And did you experience anything unusual? Let us know in the comment section below, because we really want to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe for more Canadian content. Now, let's head to the next haunted location. There is no more beautiful place to stay than in Banff, Alberta, nestled in the Rocky Mountains. The Banff Springs Hotel is located in the Banff National Park and overlooks the scenic valley towards Mount Rundle. This majestic hotel was built by the Canadian Pacific Railway as one of Canada's grand railway hotels, opening in 1888. As with other CPR hotels, it was built in the Chateaunesque style. The hotel has hosted many famous people, from Marilyn Monroe to the British monarchs, and was known as the Castle of the Rockies. It was designated a National Historic Site of Canada a century later in 1988. The hotel is home to two notable phantoms. Many people have reported seeing the ghost of a bride in a full wedding gown, often dancing in the ballroom. The story goes back to the 1920s. A wedding couple descended the hotel's marble staircase when something startled the bride, causing her to slip. As she fell, her gown caught fire on the candles adorning the staircase, and she died from a broken neck at the end of her fall. Guests and staff have witnessed the flames on her dress as her ghost dances alone in the ballroom. Sam McCauley was a bellman in the hotel in the 1960s and 70s, and he loved his job so much that he decided to stay on at the Banff Springs after his death in 1975. He's known to appear in his 1960s uniform and help guests enter their locked rooms, turn on lights, and carry bags. If you try to speak to Sam or give him a tip, he vanishes. Apparitions and cold spots occur in the mezzanine and the 6th, 7th, and 9th floors. Guests have reported having their pillows yanked out from under them or being pushed out of bed by some unknown force. There is also a story of a family who was murdered in one of the rooms, and guests complain of being awakened by screams. When they turn on the lights, bloody handprints are smeared on the mirror. When you stay at the Banff Springs Hotel, you can be assured that you will get the beauty, and sometimes you'll also get the booze. Located in Nelson, British Columbia, the HUME Hotel is one of the oldest in the province. Built by Fred and Lydia Hume, the hotel was known for its modern conveniences such as electric lights and steam radiators, and the hotel was a marvel of first-class accommodation. The grand opening on March 17, 1898, was a celebration unlike anything the new city of Nelson had seen before. The most haunted area of the hotel was room 335, but due to several renovations over its long history, that room no longer exists. But not to worry, there is plenty of other haunting going on. Guests report that they have a feeling of being watched, and many have seen a well-dressed man in a bowler hat. He appears to be checking things around the hotel and is known as the caretaker ghost. Cleaning staff put up with ghostly pranks such as taps which constantly drip even after being completely repaired, and televisions turning on and off, and odd changes in temperature. Voices have reportedly been heard, and one guest said she heard a woman laughing uproariously in her room. If you stay at the HUME, don't be alarmed when you open your hotel room door and see a ghostly gentleman sitting at the edge of the bed. He'll just tip his hat and invite you in. Carcross, Yukon Territory is the location of the historically rich and significant CARIBOU Hotel and is a Yukon historic site. Originally built around 1898 at Bennett, BC, the building was floated on a scow down Lake Bennett to Carcross. In 1903, the hotel was sold to Dawson Charlie, one of the discoverers of the Klondike Gold and a member of the Carcross Tagish First Nation. He had the building extensively remodeled and renamed it the CARIBOU Hotel. Edwin and Bessie Gideon rented and operated the hotel after Charlie's death in 1908 when he fell off a railway bridge and drowned. The hotel burned to the ground on Christmas Eve 1909, but the Gideons built a new hotel on the same spot. A number of interesting characters have stayed at the CARIBOU Hotel, including Polly the Parrot, who moved in with the Gideons in 1918. Polly resided at the hotel from 1918 until his death in 1972. Polly was known for singing opera and dirty songs, drinking whiskey, and cursing. Polly is buried at the Carcross Cemetery. Edwin Gideon passed on, and exactly 5 years later, Bessie died in 1933. And that's when strange things began to happen in the CARIBOU Hotel. The figure of a woman, presumed to be Bessie, is often seen standing near a third-floor window and bangs on the floorboards and knocks on doors. If you're lucky, she'll even add bubbles to your bath.
That was the owner's suite. So many of the operators of the hotel actually lived in the owner's suite. So Mr. and Mrs. Gideon lived there as well. So when people stay in the owner's suite, she often, people will wake up in the night and she'll be standing at the foot of the bed looking at them. And realistic enough that people have actually gotten out of bed and spoken to her. And one person actually even took her downstairs and let her out because they thought it was a guest that had gotten locked in the building at night. So she's quite realistic when she does come to visit.
People say that they have heard a young girl singing and a harp playing music, though it's highly unlikely that anyone in Carcross owns a harp. Other unexplained happenings include being brushed up against while on the stairs and hearing people's conversations, yet no one is there, hearing footsteps, and the television in the saloon turning on and the volume increasing by an unseen hand. Polly the Parrot hasn't returned to the hotel yet, but I'm waiting for the day that the Phantom Bird entertains guests with ghostly ribald songs. The former owner, Linda Dufford of the Back Eddy restaurant in Hay River, Northwest Territories, had some spooky stories to tell. The restaurant's been in business since 1974, and the Dufford family owned it from 2000 to 2018. During that time, some strange things had been seen and felt. A few years after purchasing the Back Eddy, the family saw something pass through the restaurant. They believe it was the apparition of the building's previous owner who had worked in the building for 50 years prior to his death. Dufford said she's seen the figure of a tall cowboy float above the floor, and sometimes she's seen clouds within the restaurant's mirrors, but obviously clouds are not in the building. Around 2000, the Michelin Man came to visit, or at least that's what he was nicknamed, because it looked like he was wearing a big puffy jacket. It's believed to be the spirit of a man who died in Fort Resolution, the body having been transported to Hay River wrapped in a white sheet because it was too big to fit in a casket. The Michelin Man returned the next day to play pranks on some women at the bar. The lights in the restaurant began to strobe but could not be turned off. As soon as the women stood up, the flashing stopped, only to start up again when they sat back down. It turned out the women were related to the man who passed away at Fort Resolution. The Duckworth family sold the building in 2018, but I could find no reports from the new owners if they've had any visits from the puffy poltergeist. If you're interested in ghost tourism or just want to try your hand at seeing something otherworldly, then check out some of those haunted sites where guests have checked in, but not out. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, there are a few things you can do to support our channel. Give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and leave a comment. Let us know if there's a Canadian story you would like us to cover in a future episode. For more content about Canada, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon to be notified of our next video upload.